Tayotaravo Vinedustam Sarvabhutam Hridayanathosmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparara Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Prinde Namaste Charanaravindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Paratram Tato Mamanasti Gatyena Kapi. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotara Sarashishi Mad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotara Sarashishi Mad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada. And all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, Dandavat pranams. So last night we were discussing those 6 qualities of Bhagavan. If you haven't seen this diagram, you can just pass it around and then... Huh?
That's 6 qualities of Bhagavan. Oh, sorry, that was again. We're going to put this really close to your mouth.
Okay, put it there.
It's going too far to the side.
Eating microphone.
Yeah, it's there for us. It's there to get your voice.
Okay. So each morning, before we actually begin the specific topic, and today it's the beautiful song, the Rudra Geet, chanted by Shivji to the Pracetas. So this is where we reached in the 4th canto. So just to recap the flow, some devotees were telling me yesterday they found it helpful just to backtrack each time and then come up to where we're actually up to. It's helpful to get this vision of the Bhagavatam. So the 1st canto is questions by the sages, and then Krishna's incarnations, and then the Narad, Vyasadeva Samvad, and then Ashvatam, then the prayers of Mother Kunti, Queen Kunti, both of Parikshit, and the leaving of Hastinapur of Krishna, and the entering into Dwarka. These are very significant chapters. They're not superfluous in any way, because they're setting a scene and they're putting the accent on Krishna at the center of all existence. So when Krishna leaves Hastinapur, it's a very wonderful, spectacular, festive occasion. On this occasion, of course, Uttara is running to him with the iron arrow of Ashvatam gliding towards her womb. And then he goes to Dwarka, and it's an incredible welcome into Dwarka. Sort of reminds me of Gurudev, if you've traveled ever with Gurudev on the festivals. When you leave one place, everyone's crying. When you reach the next place, everyone's joyful. And it goes on like that cycle. So Krishna also leaving and then entering. Then after that, it's the passing away of Bhishma Dev. Then it's Dhritarashtra passes away, then the Pandavas pass away. And then the birth of Parikshit is celebrated, and then Parikshit confronts Kali, and it's descriptions about Parikshit. Then in the last chapter, 19th chapter, then Shukadev makes his appearance. So make that very clear. One time, quite a senior devotee who was speaking on the Bhagavatam was quoting the first verse, Janmadi Yasya Yatanivya, and then he was saying, oh, this is spoken by Shukadev Goswami. I felt very pained when I actually heard that, because I couldn't figure out how that could possibly be. How could Sukadeva Goswami? This is the Mangalacharya of Vyasadeva. This is Vyasadev's compilation. He compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's the Shakti-Vesh avatar. Sukadeva Goswami is speaking within the Bhagavatam. He's part of the dialogue there. But it wasn't Sukadeva Goswami would be speaking that Mangalacharya at all. Sukadeva Goswami doesn't appear till the end of the 1st canto. So then in the 2nd canto, very beautiful introduction by Sukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. He's saying in the very beginning, he says, what are the general people doing with their lives. In the day, what is it? In the day they're just making money, and at night they're just engaging in sex life. This is in the 3rd verse that he speaks. The very first thing that he speaks, he's chastising the general populace for not taking sufficient attention in these divine topics. And then we come to the 9th chapter of the 2nd canto, when there's the Chatushloki, and he imparts that. And the 10th chapter is the 10 topics that are going to be discussed in the Bhagavatam. So now we've come up 1st and 2nd, just straight away. And then the 3rd canto is these very beautiful talks, first of all with Vidura and Uddhava. Vidura has left the Kuru household during the Battle of Kurukshetra, and he meets Uddhava, who's destitute because of the departure of Krishna and all of their millions of family relatives. So this is the opening. Again, it's setting the scene. It's giving us a comfortable place to go forward. Vyasadeva knows that in Kali Yuga, people are inclined to stories. This is why he presented us with the Mahabharata. People like to listen to stories more than they like to dive into the philosophy. So Vyasadeva, he crafts his whole Bhagavatam with this support of the pastimes of the stories. So Vidura is meeting Uddhava. Very beautiful exchange. One point, Uddhava, he can't even speak. His hairs are standing on end. He's horripulating so much in ecstasy at feeling this separation from Krishna. Bereavement, but at the same time, it's an ecstasy internally. And then Uddhava, at this time, he's been ordered to go to Badrikashram. So then he leaves Vidura. Vidura is on the cusp of actually wanting to take initiation from Uddhava. He wants to make inquiries about all the things that he inquires later on from Maitreya. But Uddhava is realizing that actually Vidura is like my grandfather. Krishna and Uddhava are practically the same age. Uddhava is a little bit younger. Uddhava is Krishna's cousin. Vasudeva, his brother, Devabhag, he's the father of Uddhava. So they're like cousins. So Vidura is like the father. So it's like the grandfather, more or less, of Uddhava. So it's completely inappropriate for such a young-bodied soul to be giving instruction to such an older, senior person. He didn't feel comfortable with that dynamic. Of course he could have done, but he chose not to. And instead, he sends Vidura to speak with Maitreya, who's residing on the banks of the Ganga near Haridwar. Because Maitreya has just been with Uddhava when Krishna left this world. So it's all connecting all the way through. So then Vidura, he finds out Maitreya. Then Maitreya, he begins to impart answer all the questions that Vidura is asking, principally about creation. So it's all about, in the 3rd canto at the beginning, Lord Brahma, and it's called Vishaga, the creation by Lord Brahma. First of all, the Sargo was described by Shukadeva Goswami, which is the creation by Krishna. Then there's Vishaga. This is the creation by Lord Brahma. This is the 2nd topic. So then it's a description of all Lord Brahma's sons, etc., coming from the different parts of his body. And then finally, I just want you to read this verse. I was reading it this morning. It's very beautiful, just to keep you well tuned. So this is in the 12th chapter of the 3rd canto, and it's sort of like a springboard, we can say, into the 4th canto. O son of the Kurus, this is Maitreya speaking to Vidura. When Brahma saw that in spite of the presence of sages of great potency, there was no sufficient increase in population, he seriously began to consider how the population could be increased. Brahma thought to himself, alas, it is wonderful that in spite of my being scattered all over, there is still insufficient population throughout the universe. There is no other cause for this misfortune but destiny. Because Lord Brahma, he tried his very hardest to populate the planets. This is what I've already said all this, but I'm just saying it in different language again, just to make an impression. While he was thus absorbed in contemplation and was observing the supernatural power, 2 other forms were generated from his body. They are still celebrated as the body of Lord Brahma. That's what I wanted to read to you today. That Swayambhuva Manu and Satarupa are celebrated as the body of Lord Brahma, because they're the initial progenitors of the whole population of the planets. The 2 newly separated bodies united together in sexual relationship. Out of them, one who had a male form became known as Manu, named Swayambhuva, and the woman became known as Satarupa, the queen of the great soul Manu. So I just wanted, that's in the 12th chapter of the 3rd canto. So from that place, from Swayambhuva Manu's advent, it goes right the way through, actually, to the 12th canto. There's no break. The beginning chapters of the 12th canto are about the deterioration in the age of Kali, it's called it, and it's all the different lineages, but they all have their root back with Swayambhuva Manu. So this is all that same current. So when you've got that current clearly, you can see that thread. There are so many different types or different levels, we can say, of threads in the Bhagavatam. But this is just a very basic structural thread, just to keep us connected all the way through. So, and we go through Kadama Muni, who is the son of Lord Brahma, but he marries Devahuti, who's the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. Then remember, at the beginning of the 4th canto, we're talking about the other 2 daughters of Kadama Muni. This is Prashuti and Akuti, and it's their lineages. And then that comes into the beautiful pastime of Daksha offending Lord Shiva, because Daksha is manifested in this line also. Akuti marries Daksha, and the progeny begin to multiply with that marriage. And then, so Daksha is mentioned there, this aspect about Lord Shiva being offended. But that's a very dynamic pastime of Virabhadra, etc., all the sages, and it's very riveting. So this is the expertise of Vyasadeva, planting it there at the beginning of the 4th canto. And then after that we come directly back into the line of Swayambhuva Manu. His second son, Uttanapad, and from Uttanapad is Dhruva. So we've discussed Dhruva in this 4th canto, and then after Dhruva were his different descendants, and then coming from Maharaj Anga, who's one of Dhruva's descendants, comes Vena. And then there's 2 chapters about Vena, then there's the churning of Vena's limbs. In other words, still keeping the dynasty intact, because Vena has come from that dynasty. He's born in that dynasty, so the same bloodline is there.
Whose son is Vena?
Vena.
Whose son is
Anga. Maharaj Anga. Anga is a great, you got your table? Great grandson of Dhruva Maharaj. And he's very disappointed. He has no son, remember, we spoke the whole pastime. And he was very disappointed. Huh?
I remember the pastime, but I didn't remember who son.
The father was, the son, yeah. This is what I'm trying to reiterate each morning, just to get the flow, get the line, see the connection everywhere. If we get the connection, it gives us this confidence of entering into the precepts of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is so profound, but we need some. We want to catch the whole Bhagavatam, not just parts of the Bhagavatam, not just exclusively, entirely the 10th canto, which is the pinnacle of the whole Bhagavatam, but nevertheless, these other 9 cantos, they support that. That's the purpose of them being there. We talked yesterday in evening class about Sambandha Gyan. Srila Gurudev is talking about these first 9 cantos, these 3 aspects of Sambandha Gyan, the 3 vastus, Krishna, Maya, and the Jiva. We spoke about Advaya Gyan, Paratattva, last night, substantiating this Sambandha appreciation. And then after Vena, then is this Nishad, this little black man, and who represents all the sinful activities of Vena, the embodiment of that, and then comes magnificent Prithu Maharaj, which we've discussed yesterday, and Archie, these two personalities manifested, a Shakti Vaishya avatar, and the great qualities of kingship. This is the first time in the Bhagavatam that these sorts of qualities have been spoken about, like what sort of leaders should we look for, what are the qualities of leadership, etc., when we're in this predicament of being caught in this material situation. So the qualities of Prithu are very worthwhile and very enlivening and very healthy for the consciousness to absorb. The sweet, powerful, wonderful qualities of Prithu Maharaj, how he milked Mother Earth, etc. So now we're still in the same line, because the grandson of Prithu Maharaj is called Pracetas, and he becomes to be called Prachinabari because he performs many, many yajnas, and actually is a description that he had scattered grass all over the planet, kusha grass, all pointing in the northward direction, which is according to the explanations of the ritual for the yajna. So yajna is the Yuga Dharma at this time now. We spoke previously how Dhruva Maharaj was actually coming out of Satya Yuga because he ruled for 36,000 years. Then we come into Prithu Maharaj. His rule is not as lengthy as that. So we're coming down, and Prithu Maharaj was the one who was arranging all the villages and the towns and the general master planning the whole earth, leveling all the mountains, etc. This is like the advent of Treta Yuga, basically, and the Yuga Dharma for Treta Yuga is yajna. So we see the example of Prithu Maharaj. He's performing so many Ashvamedha yajnas. And now we see in Prachinabari, we're going to see after this one chapter of chanting the Rudra Gita, then is going to be Narada Muni is going to come, and he's going to prompt Prachinabari to stop performing all these karma kand yajnas, but actually he should take shelter exclusively of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's a beautiful story there. I hope we can get through both of these topics today. So that's where we're up to, but please appreciate this genealogical thread. It starts with Lord Brahma and all his sons, and then Swayambhuva Manu, etc. So it's rolling right the way through the whole Bhagavatam. I just want to share with you, I've only really appreciated this by speaking with you now. By coming here this week, I haven't appreciated that so clearly. So it's very helpful for you also to speak these things when you go to different lands and so on. And then also newer and fresher realizations and appreciations will come from the Bhagavatam. So now we've reached this chapter about the Pracetas, because the son of Prithu Maharaj is called Vichitsava. He's the eldest son of Prithu, and it's described in this chapter, which is 24. Raghunath is not here today. Chapter 24, the continuing of the rule, and then it's described how Vichitsava, he finally considers that taxing, punishing, and fining people is very severe and painful. And then he gave them up on the plea of performing a long sacrifice, karma yoga. So he leaves the kingdom to his sons and to his brothers, rather, sorry. So then one of his brothers has 6 sons, and one of those sons is called Pracetas. So Pracetas is who's going to be described, Prachinabari. Prachinabari and Pracetas are the same. Then it's described that Pracetas was a Prajapati, expert in karma. Prajapati. Expert in karma kand. I only say it just because I love to hear Chitra's voice, you know. Expert in karma kand, sacrifice of mystic yoga. He performed many sacrifices and scattered kusha grass all over the earth, with their tips pointing east, not north. I made a mistake, I said north. So the tips were pointing east. So this is how much into the karmakand sacrifice he was. And that is called Prachinagrahi. That's why he became called Prachinabari. On the order of Lord Brahma, Barisat Prachinabari married Satadruti, a very young and beautiful daughter of the ocean. This is very significant because her 10 sons, the Pracetas, had the ability to stay under the ocean for 10,000 years. They had that ability because their mother was born from the ocean. Perhaps they had some sort of bodily extra.
Rishis could do certain things like that, like Shabari Rishi was underneath.
I know this is true of course, but at the same time, because their mother's from the ocean, it lends something more special or specific about them going to the ocean for 10,000 years. I was always thinking that previously, but then reading about Satadruti, she's from the ocean. So for these 10 sons, who are called the 10 Pracetas, Prachina literally means ancient, like we have Prachina Maya in Navadvip. It actually means ancient. So these Pracetas, they were in this traditional, this ancient tradition. So 10 Pracetas who were born to Satadruti and Prachinabari. Satadruti is the princess from the ocean.
Satya?
Satadruti.
Sata.
Shatadruti. Shatadruti. 10 Pracetas, who were all equal in vows and endowed with religiosity. The Pracetas, being ordered by their father to beget children, entered the ocean for 10,000 years to perform austerities and worship the Supreme Lord. So this is right at the very beginning of Treta Yuga. So this is the time frame. And then on their way, they met Lord Shiva, who was pleased with them and gave them instructions and his prayers. With complete control, the Pracetas meditated and chanted and worshipped these instructions. So then there's some dialogue between Vidura and Maitreya. He's asking about the nature of the Pracetas and how rare it was to have darshan of Lord Shiva. And then there's a description of when the Pracetas are on their way to the ocean to perform these yagyas. They saw a huge, beautiful lake, which was calm like the mind of a saint. Its inhabitants appeared very peaceful. It was filled with various beautiful lotuses, blooming in day, night, and twilight. The sweet-sounding birds, swans, cranes, chakravakas, and karandavas were there also. There was a festive atmosphere. There were also trees, creepers, and hummingbees, and the wind scattered lotus pollen everywhere. There was celestial music. The Pracetas became amazed hearing these attractive celestial songs. At that time, they saw Lord Shiva with a golden complexion, bluish throat, and 3 eyes, along with his associates, emerge from that lake. They all offered their obeisances. Lord Shiva was pleased with the Pracetas because of their knowledge of Dharma Gyan, and their good conduct. Thus he spoke to them. Lord Shiva said, "Good fortune unto you. I know your plans and have come here to give you mercy." So now Lord Shiva explains why he is merciful to the Pracetas. He says, anyone who completely surrendered to Vasudeva, the controller of everything, is actually very dear to me. And then it's described that a person fixed in Dharma for 100 births attains the post of Lord Brahma. By more pious acts, one attains me, Lord Shiva, he's saying. But by unalloyed devotional service, a Vaishnava attains Vaikuntha. So even higher than this is the qualification of a Vaishnava. Therefore, devotees like you are as dear to me as the Lord himself, and the devotees also consider me as dear to them as the Lord himself. Let me give you a pure, auspicious, and transcendental mantra, the chanting of which bestows the highest benefit. With a merciful heart, Shiva spoke to the Pracetas, who stood with folded hands. And now this next aspect is called the Rudra Gita, and it's very nicely spelled out in this study guide. It's in all tables, it's very easy to absorb. So I'm going to just read some of these aspects to you. So in these lines, one side describes the Lord's quality, and the other side of the table describes the purpose of the prayer. So the Lord's quality and the purpose of the prayer. This mantra is filled with all different invocations, different focuses, different perspectives. So the Lord's quality: you are the best of the self-realized, since you are always auspicious for the self-realized. That's a wonderful quality of Krishna. So the purpose of this prayer is, let me also have that auspicious condition. By praying in that way, I also want to become fully self-realized. You are worshipable by virtue of the all-powerful instructions you gave. The purpose of this is, let me have perfection by worshipping you. So this is the speciality of this particular chapter. It suddenly just drops in like a jewel into the 4th canto of just focused prayers of the Lord. So now this is a description of these prayers. Then Lord Shiva begins to describe the different deities: Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, the quadruple expansion. And he describes the function of the deity, which is to be invoked by the mantra. And then he describes the purpose of the prayer. What will be the result of that mantra? So Vasudeva is all-pervading, the controller of the senses and sense objects. And the purpose of this prayer is to please make my chitta peaceful. The chitta is the origin of all thoughts. And unchanging, and make it conscious of bhakti by revealing your beauty. We were discussing yesterday that the first quality of Krishna is his beauty. That's the first quality of Krishna. So Vasudeva is invoking the beauty of Krishna. Then the second deity is Sankarshan. This is the master of disintegration, or the destroyer of the universe. Sankarshan. Bind my possessiveness to the Lord, and my ego to my true identity as his devotee. It's very beautiful. Contemplate. Imagine you had 10,000 years under the ocean where there was no distractions to think about a mantra like this. This is what Lord Shiva is giving. He's giving the seed of their contemplation for the next 10,000 years. They're going to be studying, or they're going to be meditating on these jewels that Lord Shiva has imparted to them. So the next deity is Pradyumna. He's the enlightener of the universe. And the purpose of this mantra is to wake up my intelligence so that it will situate me in bhakti. So by being enlightened, that means place me in that world of devotion to the Lord. Very powerful. And then Aniruddha is the 4th deity. This is the supreme director. And it's the deity of the mind. And the function of the deity is the director of the mind, which is the chief of the senses. The mind is like the in charge. So the purpose of this mantra is to attract my mind to the Lord's lotus feet through bhakti alone, and keep it in the perfect state of cleanliness. So these are the very significant mantras to be chanting. After purifying the four components of the Antakarana, Chit, Ahankar, Buddhi, and Manas, by worshipping their Upashaya deities, he offers respects to the Lord in the form of the presiding deities of the elements in the 4 verses in order to purify the 5 gross elements which constitute the body of the external senses. So then there's beautiful mantras to purify the mind, the earth, the air, sound, etc. All the different senses there. And ultimately the false ego. And the deity of the false ego is Lord Shiva himself. So I'll just read this one. All the other descriptions are there. This is what constitutes this particular chapter. It's Rudra Geet, it's called. It's the prayer by Lord Shiva to invoke the presence of the Lord. By practicing this daily in our lives, we can also attain such an exalted result. So the purpose of this mantra is, may the Lord's mercy purify false egoism so that real egoism can be awakened. The spirit soul performing devotional activities. So we've discussed a number of times over the last week how our real self is covered by this nishag, this false impression. And prayer here directly to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is worshipped by so many of the Goswamis, particularly Sanatana Goswami. My beloved Gurudev, he would also worship Shivji. Very clearly, he took on the project at Durvasa Rishi Ashram with great happiness and worshipped Lord Shiva there. So many of our acharyas are also very much honoring all the way through. In Jayavadama also, Babaji, he glorifies Shivji straight away. Sankara, when he hears, who is it? Vaishnav Das talking about Lord Shiva. Now, remembering in this way, purifying the body, senses and mind by offering respects, Lord Shiva become qualified, offering respects to Lord Shiva. Now he prays to see the Lord. So now in this Geet, in this song, it's called the Rudra Geet. Now he's going to invoke a vision of the Lord. He says, I wish to see you exactly in that form that your very dear devotees worship. Only that form, likened by the devotees, can perfectly satisfy all the demands of my senses. The Lord's body glistens, dark, like a rain cloud, is the sum total of all beauty. Krishna is called Lavanamrita. He's the origin, he's the very birthplace of beauty. Lavanamrita, the birthplace. Everything that we can conceive of as beautiful has had its origin in Krishna. Krishna, the name itself, the all-attractive one. All jivas are attracted to Krishna, whether they know it or they don't know it. That's why the name Krishna, all-attractive one. With your 4 long arms and noble, attractive face, the Lord has eyes like lotus petals, graceful brows and raised nose, fine teeth and forehead, and well-proportioned, decorated ears. This is to be their, first of all, they're purifying the elements and they're purifying the mind, etc. Now, the focus of the concentration has to be on the form of the Lord. The Lord's joyful glance indicates his affection. His beauty is enhanced by his curling hair. His cloth glows like lotus pollen. He wears glittering earrings, a crown, bracelets, a necklace, anklets, and a belt. His beauty is increased by his conch, chakra, club, lotus, garland, and jewels. So then it goes a description of his chest, his belly, his lower body, and then the result of meditation on his form is that one who desires purification should meditate on this form. So I'm just going quickly through. And it's describing also in this mantra from Lord Shiva that you are obtainable only by bhakti. This is also as Gita is proclaiming. Krishna is proclaiming himself that bhakti is the principle. You are easily attained by your devotees, but really attained by any living being. Even Indra and Brahma desire you. They also desire bhakti, in other words. You are the ultimate destination of the Kumaras and other knowers of Atma. And it's saying furthermore that time, death, cannot touch the devotee. So it's described in that 12th chapter in the 3rd canto that I've already spoken about, that how Lord Brahma, he puts these 5 coverings on the jiva, and one of those coverings is fear of death. All jivas are afraid of death, but we should appreciate that there is no such thing as death for the soul. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada describes that death is just a symptom of material consciousness. It's not a reality. So if we can become disentangled from this material world through detachment and attraction to Krishna, then at the time of death it's simply a transition into another body, that's all. It doesn't have to be a massive, tragedy for the jiva to contemplate. He doesn't have to be fearful of that impending death. Even half a moment's association with such a devotee cannot be compared to swaga or liberation, the results of karma and jnana. Results of karma are swaga, results of jnana is moksha. So a moment's association with a pure devotee can give such a higher result. There's these 3 stages, this kleshagni shubhada, moksha lokhatakrit, sandrananda visheshatma, sudulabha. Is that right? Yeah, so these 3 stages of bhakti. The sadhan bhakti, bhav bhakti and prema bhakti. And in the 2nd stage, bhav bhakti, it's saying this moksha lokhatakrit, that the bhakta is looking with disdain on the attainment of moksha. Understand? So association with devotees is Krishna's real mercy. A devotee is unagitated and absorbed. Can you
read that one line again?
Which one?
Association with devotees.
Association with the devotees is your real mercy. So I can read these, what's here. Therefore, please give me the association of your devotees, who are 1, completely purified by the famous Ganga arising from your lotus feet. And secondly, are compassionate, have proper conduct and pure hearts. Such association is your real mercy. And then there's a description of the time factor, how time causes everything to be destroyed by something else. And there's an analogy here, as one animal is eaten by another. So this is incorporated into the description here. Time scatters everything. So we know that when the seed enters the Udara Shakti, the womb of this universe, coming from Mahavishnu through the glance carried by Shambhu, within that seed, what is within that seed? What are the 2 components? What are the 2 components in the seed? The seed that's emanating from Mahavishnu's glance into this material world. To impregnate the Prakriti, the seed is the jiva and time. Within, it's like the semen from the male coming into the womb of the female. So Shambhu is bringing that, and then the time factor. So now it's making reference to the time. In spiritual spiritual worlds, there's absence of time entirely. Now there's a description. Mahavishnu is glancing. You know the story. I'm saying it briefly because you already know. Mahavishnu is reclining and he glances towards Ramadevi. Actually, it's Ramadevi who inspires that. Ramadevi is Mahavishnu's consort. And then Ramadevi is she is the actual glance that is coming in to the it's called the Udara Shakti. It's like the womb of Prakriti, Durga Ma, ultimately. And then Shambhu, Lord Shiva, you know this already. The creation, it's spoken about so much in the first two cantos, especially the second canto. Shukadeva Goswami describes the creation. You have Mahavishnu lying, that beautiful painting, and all the bubbles coming out of his. So they're inactive, but then he actually glances towards that material energy. That material energy is described as having no cohesiveness. Sometimes it's termed as primordial soup. It's just like the womb of a mother. It doesn't have any function until the male semen impregnates the womb. It's just empty. All the ingredients are there to manifest the material world, which is what the analogy is about. But there's no seed has actually entered yet. So Mahavishnu, he's responsible for that seed via Ramadevi, who is Mahavishnu's consort. And then it's Shambhu, Lord Shiva, who's described as the halo of that glance that's carried into the womb of Prakriti. Prakriti is the material energy. That seed is carried into the womb. And that seed contains what? That was my question. I was just seeing how much you were all awake. The seed, and what is inside the seed? Jiva and time. Without the jiva, nothing can work out in the material world. And without time, the time factor, then as soon as that's manifested, then immediately the modes of material nature start to act on the jiva from that point. So that's basically the material creation. But this is all described in the second canto. And it's touched upon again in the third canto. So there are different descriptions of that.
So if the jivas are already manifested, what was the use of Brahma to begin if they are already manifested?
They're not in their external forms. It's called Hiranyagarbha. They're like in potential forms. It's just a single jiva. But from that prototype, you know the meaning of prototype? It's like the beginning. From that prototype, all the other jivas manifest. But they have to be, it's like an architect. You can give him, you know, stone and sand and water, but he has to actually put it all together. He has to actually design something. Someone has to draw something, the different arches and the buildings and so on. So Lord Brahma, he has to create a habitation for the jivas to actually dwell in and populate and be satisfied so they don't all commit suicide, you know, with the suffering on the material world caused by the material modes of nature, because they're out of their spiritual identities. I mean, if we really knew how far away we were from our spiritual reality, I don't know what we might do. So we're made to be sort of like captivated along the road until we actually get a proper glimpse of what is our spiritual identity, and then gradually that spiritual identity is able to harmonize with being in the body simultaneously as living in this world of matter.
That's why Gurudev saying that if we know everything from the past person,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Why don't we know all of our previous births? Because then you'd be so confused with so many different identities. We're already confused with one identity. If we knew like what another previous, I was a king, I was a yogi, I was a grandmother, I was this, I was that. Wow, we'd be really completely bewildered. Who the heck am I? So, you know, Krishna very mercifully covers those previous identities. It's not necessary. If it was necessary to know, we would know it.
One devotee asked for the Gurudev in New Braj, why can't we remember our previous lifetimes? Then it would be so easy. Then we would know what mistakes not to make, what not to do, and what mistakes we've made, and you know, we'd focus. And Gurudev said, if you even knew what karma was coming to you from even only 10 lifetimes, you would die of sheer fright. Only 10 lifetimes, so to speak of more than that.
Yeah. Better we just blissfully in
You would
ignorance.
die of sheer fright. Fear. You just die knowing what reactions are coming
Yes.
to you, even from only 10 lifetimes.
If you're supposed to, if it's going to be helpful for you, then Krishna can make an arrangement for you to get a glimpse of a previous birth. Many times devotees, they do have, glimpses. And if it's helpful for your bhakti, whatever is helpful for the bhakti, then Guru and Krishna will arrange that. Listen, we have to speed up a little bit. We've got 8 minutes left to do the whole of Prachinabari. We can do it. We can do it. We can do it. You watch. Because of this notebook, we can do it. So then there's a beautiful Falshruti, which means the fruits of chanting this mantra. Actually, it was good that we took time to go through this beautiful mantra that Lord Shiva gives, just a tiny little bit I've spoken. But if you sit with this chapter 24 in the 4th canto, read it through carefully, the commentaries, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's edition also, if you have the two together, it just opens it out, gives it a greater space, and appreciate the beauty and the power and the potency of this mantra that Shivji has given to the Pracetas. It's a whole song.
Not just one.
Right. All of the different mantras. But I've gone through specific mantras, and how they're purifying the directions first, and then what they're leading, what is the purpose of them, etc. And then there's the Falshruti, which is the fruit of chanting this, and ultimately it's Bhakti Devi. Vibrating this song with faith, Shraddhaya, one can please the Lord who is really conquered. So to please Krishna is the goal of the bhaktas, and Krishna is pleased by devotion, by mood. So now, in the 25th chapter, we're coming to...
Can you just tell me the chapter just before, the canto and the chapter? Because there's the important verses.
424.
The mercy of Krishna is the association of the devotees. So I just wanted to...
There are many, many sweet verses in this.
But that one's very, very distinct. The mercy of
That is 47.
Canto
4, chapter 24, verse 47.
424, 47.
Okay. All of these verses are very powerful. So now we've come to a description. Chapter 25 is a description of the characteristics of King Puranjana. And I'll just read in bullet form what this chapter is going to be about. And because we're not going to get through it otherwise. So Lord Shiva disappears and the Pracetas recite the Rudra Gita. For 10,000 years they meditate on this. Narad goes to Prachinabari and asks, what do you gain by karma? Prachinabari has become sunk in these karma kand activities. And there's a very close parallel to this. You remember when we go on Navadvip Parikrama, we come to Suvarna Bihar. Suvarna Bihar, there was also another king there called Suvarna Sen. And Narada Muni also went there and he enlightened him. He was also performing too much karma kanda. And Narada Muni very mercifully also straightened him out and put him on the good track. So, Prachinabari requests for pure knowledge, admitting the misfortune of Grihamedis. He's appreciating his Grihamedi lifestyle. There's Grihastra, where you're performing a dharmic household life, and there's Grihamedi, where you're just taking advantage of each other's bodies, more or less, and trying to enjoy this material world. That's called Grihamedi. So, Prachinabari's great quality is humility when Narada appears. If Narada didn't think that Prachinabari was going to be receptive to his instruction, he wouldn't have come. Narada shows the sacrificial animals in the sky. All these animals that have supposed to be given fresh birth have actually, because he's declined in his potency, because he's only wanting karmic results from these sacrifices. So all these animals are actually alive in the ether. And Narad, he shows him all these animals who are waiting to spike their horns into Prachinabhari when he leaves the body for performing these unnecessary yajnas. Prachinabhari searches for a suitable place. Oh, sorry. Now, that was the situation. And then Narad now is going to begin to speak a allegorical story, because Prachinabhari is not awake enough to hear direct instruction. He has to be told in an allegorical story. So now is the story of King Puranjana. That's what the story is about. So just get the names clear to begin with, and then we can enter the teachings. So Prachinabhari, or Prachinabhari Sat, is the king, and he's hearing the story of Puranjan. And Narad is going to relate this. So Narad relates the story of Puranjan. Puranjan searches for a suitable place. Puranjan is like the soul. He's searching for a suitable place, a suitable body. He's had many, many bodies, and now he's searching for another body. This is the explanation of the allegory. So he's searching for a place. And then there's a description of the city of 9 gates. We have 9 holes in the body. 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, a mouth, 2 ears, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Genital and anus. That makes 9. So there's 9 holes in the body. So he finds a city of 9 gates, and he believes that this is the place he wants to stay. Then Puranjan sees a beautiful woman. Puranjani, and there's a description of her. This beautiful woman is actually dharmic intelligence. It signifies dharmic intelligence. So Puranjan, he approaches that woman, he flatters the woman and requests her to become his wife. So they unite there. Then Puranjan advocates pravriti marg and discourages nivriti marg, and happily agrees to become his wife. So Puranjani, this material intelligence, agrees to enjoy the body rather than actually uphold material intelligence, dharmic intelligence rather. And then they enjoy within this city, within this body. And then they represent the 9, which represents, I've already said that. Puranjan fulfills all her desires and follows her activities and becomes her pet animal. So he's very submissive to the queen, and that's, relevant in all kinds of different. There are many, many levels of instruction throughout the Bhagavatam. We're just focusing on somewhat of a superficial level because we're going quite fast through, because my purpose just of doing this 1 week was to present the whole of the 4th canto in its context. That was my principal desire. So now in the 26th chapter, there's a description of Puranjan going to the forest to hunt, and he leaves his queen behind. In other words, he leaves his dharmic intelligence behind, and he becomes like wayward in a sense, searching for other sense pleasures. And the analogy, this is about the analogy of the jiva in the material body. Then, when he goes to hunt, it's like giving up his wife. Puranjana goes to the forest and kills animals. Scriptural regulations on animal killing. Oh, it's got written here. Scriptural regulations on animal killing is described, and followers and non-followers of scriptures. So these are the teachings in this chapter, because it's about killing animals. So cow slaughter, animal slaughter is spoken about in this 26th chapter when Puranjan goes to the forest. And then Narad is describing that merciful people could not tolerate animal killing. After killing many animals, Puranjan becomes tired. Puranjan goes back to his palace, gets refreshed, takes rest, decorates himself, and searches out his wife. Then Puranjan asks the household women about his wife. The women show the queen lying on the ground, and Puranjan tries to appease her. Because Puranjan has just left. He's left his material dharmic intelligence and gone to engage in illicit activities. So his dharmic wife has become completely depressed, and she's taken off all her jewelry and so on. And he's asking the other residents, which means his senses, he's inquiring from them. It's all allegorical, this story. And then Puranjan pacifies his wife. Punishment of master is mercy on the servant, is the heading here. I'll come back to that. Give up your anger and show your beautiful face. This is what he's saying to his wife. His wife is angry that she's gone away. I will punish anyone who has offended you, except for a Brahmana or a Vaishnava. So then it's describing the glories of the Brahmana and Vaishnavas, that you can't exact any punishment on them. But Puranjan is trying to demonstrate himself in a heroic form now, because he's not looking at his own fault in this whole misfortune of his wife. Please show your kindness to me. So that was basically the story of the 26th chapter. You can read these yourself. You can read through. So now, in the 27th chapter, it's going to be the attack by Chandvega on the city of Puranjan, and the character of Kalakanya. So this is old age and death are going to attack the city. So then it's another allegorical description of, first of all, it's describing again in this chapter that Puranjan is enjoying with his queen, and he's forgetting about time. He's overwhelmed by illusion. Puranjan enjoys with his wife, and thus his youth passes. And then it goes into old Puranjan's family and himself meet old age. So Puranjan's sons, daughters and grandsons become plunderers of his wealth, and he becomes attached to them. This is the nature of many families, is that actually the children, they plunder the parents' wealth. Puranjan gets implicated by his desires. Like Prachinabhari, this is all referencing from Narad to Prachinabhari to please stop his karma kand yagyas. This is the purpose of this whole allegory, is for Prachinabhari to wake up and to stop this futility, because death is going to come to his body also. What is the purpose of what he's doing? So then Chandaveg attacks Puranjan city. The 5-hooded serpent fights with Chandaveg. The serpent is his pran, is his life air. This is in the allegory. And the 720 Gandharva soldiers are his... I have to read that.
Days and nights.
Huh?
Days and nights.
Days and nights, yes. Yes, thank you, thank you. Yeah, 365 days of the year and 365 nights of the year. So these come in the form of, described as Gandharva soldiers. And for 100 years, and the whole snake becomes weak. And then Jara, the story of Kalakanya, the daughter of Kadvanga. That's old age. Old age wants to come, and nobody wants to befriend her. Nobody wants to be friendly with old age. They always want to keep her away. By the advice of Narad, she approaches Baya. Vavana, Baya, fear, accepts her and as both sister and wife. So this is all the story that Prachinabhari is relating to. I'm going very quickly, I know I'm already over time, but perhaps we could just leave the rest until Or shall we finish this now? We'll finish Prachinabari now. I'm just going very briefly through. So you're getting just a brief overview of Puranjan. So in chapter 28, Puranjan becomes a woman in his next life. So finally old age and fear and death overtake that city. And then Puranjan has to leave that city. And then he's born again as a woman. And then it's described Puranjan's death and how he becomes Vaidarbha. He becomes a princess. And she marries this Malayadvaj, who was a great king. And then this king, he rules for some time. And then he goes to the forest to perform austerities. And that king also leaves his body. And then Vaidarbha, she's lamenting for the death of her husband and arranges for the funeral pyre and prepares to enter it. At this time, Abhignata comes, this old friend who's always been with her. This is Super Soul, is coming to instruct the jiva at this time in personification. Abhignata asks whether she remembers her old friend. Unless we do these studies of scripture, unless we remind ourselves constantly of Krishna within us, then we're going to forget, principally at the time of death. By my Maya, you are thinking differently, but you are qualitatively one with me. Narad reveals Prachinabari that he has instructed him through this allegorical story. So I've just gone very, very quickly, and by some miracle we'll manage to finish. But if you get this little book, it's very helpful, because if you want to study this story in depth, I had this problem last time when I came and did the third canto, right at the very end of the conversation between Devahuti and Kadamba Rishi. I didn't have time to properly finish it, so I came back for another whole week and just did the Devahuti Samvad with Kadamba Muni. So maybe I'll have to come back and do this again, because it's not. Okay, I'm just going to do this last chapter. Just a minute. So now, Narad, he is going to elaborate on this allegorical story. And then Narad begins to give a direct description of material existence. And the jiva gets different bodies according to the modes. The jiva is wandering like a dog and cannot escape samsara by any sort of material means. So this chapter 29 is very philosophical. It comes out of the story and is explaining the story. Then Narad gives bhakti as the solution. There is no remedy by material means. The only remedy is to surrender to Krishna. And then Narad ends Prachinabari's performance of rituals. Prachinabari decides to give up these yagyas, and Prachinabari is meditating. Oh, I will go to my sons and I will tell them that I'm going to leave the kingdom. I will stop their austerity so that I can leave the kingdom. Narad doesn't want this time interlude to distract King Prachinabari, because King Prachinabari has just reached an understanding of the futility of his activities, sacrificial activities. Narad wants him to go straight away, not to bother to go to his sons. His sons will take care of everything. So he doesn't have to go and tell them. Narad is trying to increase his greed just to go immediately. So there are further questions by Prachinabari, and then about the transmigration of the soul, and the renunciation of King Prachinabari. He immediately renounces the kingdom, and he finally attains the Lord. And then there is the falshruti, the fruit of hearing this pastime, which is giving liberation and clear understanding of the soul's transmigration. But that is ultimately, of course, explained by the acharyas as pure bhakti. There's a very small part just at the end here I'm going to read. Thus, Narad Muni enlightened Prachinabari and returned to Siddhaloka. Prachinabhari retires. He left orders with his ministers that his sons, the Pracetas, protect the citizens. Then he left home for Kapil Ashram. When Prachinabhari was induced by Narad to leave home and take to devotional service, the Pracetas had not yet returned from their austerities. But we know this pastime that will be described tomorrow, that actually the last pastime of this fourth canto, when the Pracetas, they emerge from the ocean, they see the whole planet is populated by trees, and they begin to burn all the trees. We'll read this tomorrow. So, being free from material association and constantly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, King Prachinabhari attained a spiritual position qualitatively equal to that of the Lord himself. So that is Samipya, Sarupya, this opulence. And then the fruit of hearing the story, it liberates one from the subtle body, it sanctifies the material world, it purifies the jiva's heart, it liberates him from all bondage, it elevates him to the spiritual world, it relieves him of the bodily conception, and it clears his doubts for his next life. So this is the fruit that can be gained from reading this Puranjan pastime. So I know that I just said it very quickly, briefly, but my goal was to just put it principle. What we discussed today mostly was the prayer, this Rudra Geet. This was very beautiful to hear. And then this Puranjan pastime came after that. So this is the order. So just try to catch that sequence at least in the Bhagavatam, whatever we appreciate. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Vrinda. So I'll just do one more class tomorrow, and that'll be the last 2 chapters of this 4th canto, which are basically a description of the Pracetas and when they emerge from the ocean. Huh? This evening we'll speak one more time on the Prayojan from that book, from Gurudev's book. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Rupa Nuga Guru Varga ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Vaishnavas ki jai.